show you how I make this little clay tree. This is made with earthenware clay, and it's just so fun. It's a fun shape to look at, and it's fun if you need a place to put your rings or hang your earrings. So I thought I would share that with you today. So I've got a lump of clay here, and I'm going to kind of pat cake it out a little bit before I roll it with my rolling pin. Patty cake it out. I always patty cake out my clay a little bit before I use the rolling pin, because if you have a big mound of clay and you're using the rolling pin on it, sometimes you end up pushing so hard and unevenly, and you might end up bending the handle, and that's no good for your rolling pin. So I'm going to take the clay and roll with the rolling pin from the middle out, from the middle back, flip it over, and do the same. And my goal is to make a nice round piece with the clay. There we go. There's that. Okay, good. Now, I'm going to leave that rest here for a second, because then it'll firm up a little bit. And I'm going to use this. So my issue with making tree branches is that when I'm drawing tree branches, some of the branches end up skinny in the middle and fat at the end. Well, I discovered this, I don't know, it just happened that I was thinking about it and realized that if I use the thickness of a paintbrush, and I usually don't use paint to do this part, I usually just dip my brush in my watered down clay, but I want you guys to be able to see it. So I realized that if I were to just paint with a paintbrush, I would be able to get the thickness very, very even. I just drew that circle because I want to stay within the perimeter of this size. So I hope you can see okay. But when I draw a tree, I start from the middle bottom and go up and kind of curve it out. And middle bottom and go up and curve it out in the other direction. Middle bottom. Notice how I'm widening the trunk as I do it, and then go up and out, go up and out. And I'll make about a dozen branches, widening the trunk, but then going out in different directions. There we go. Okay. And now I'm going to start here and kind of crisscross. It's good to make some of these branches connect, because remember, we're working with clay, and the clay can be fragile if we have long, skinny pieces that aren't connected a couple of times. So that looks pretty good. I like this. Okay, so now I've got the thickness of the branches is nice and consistent. So I don't have, like if I were to draw, like I said, if I were drawing a tree myself, I would end up with skinny parts and fat parts, and the branches wouldn't taper narrow at the end, and that would bother me. So now I've got a nice, even, consistent tree. So we're going to take this and, oops, I traced the dish. So what I like to do is I like to keep this, see how tracing that bowl made it nice and rounded? I'm going to trace the bowl again, and you can take whatever shape or size bowl you want. Just make sure that your slab of clay is a little thicker if you use a bigger bowl to do this, okay? So I traced it, and now I've got the perimeter set for me. I know that my tree is going to fit here, and I'm just going to start tracing it. I'm lining it up with the lines on my paper, and now I'm going to use, now I usually, like I said, I usually use watered down clay, so I'm going to end up getting a little paint on my tool, but I'm going to be okay with that. I'm just going to trace the lines, the outline of my tree shape with this needle tool. So it's going through the paper a little bit. I'm not ripping the paper all up. I'm just going through the paper a little bit, tracing, and wherever I see that the paper's been dented in, I know that I have traced that branch. I just love this project. It's fun to look at. It's fun to create. Just making my lines everywhere. tracing all the black lines. Hopefully you can see this okay. And then when I pick up the paper, I'm going to see all the imprints. Yeah, there's a nice tree. Okay, I'm hoping you might be able to see that. So now my job is to take the needle tool and cut everything away that isn't a tree trunk or a tree branch. So I'm using the needle tool straight up and down. And all those little, the little V shapes in between the branches, I'm always going to start with the point of the V and cut out. So I'm going to show you. I'm starting in the V, cutting out to the edge, cutting out to the edge. Here's a V, cutting out to the edge, swerving over and cutting out to the edge. I'm going to get all my edge pieces done first. There's a little strange one there. I've done this project with my students a number of times, and they've always liked it. Just the idea of creating a tree is just so satisfying. I talked about crisscrossing the branches a little bit and having the branches connect in a couple of places. That adds strength to the tree, and it gives you the little eyes in the tree. Now here's one that I just traced, and I'm going to pull it out. So whenever you get those eyes and you get to the point of tracing those, hold the tool straight up and down, cut all the way through, poke at an angle, and lift it out. Hold the tool straight up and down, trace it all the way, trace it all the way, poke at an angle, and lift it out. And again, one more eye here. That's actually, there's just a space between the branches, that's all it is. There we go, and I'm going to get rid of this part yet. Nice. Now, if you can, here, I'll hold this up. I want you to see this. Right here, it's pretty deep. So I really should have created another line in between there to add strength. So I'm just going to take one of my pieces of scrap clay, cut a branch that I'm going to use to attach. That way, that's going to add strength, and it'll create another eye, which of course there's all these spaces in between the branches where they crisscross each other, so it looks more natural to have more of those anyway. There we go. That's awesome. Cool. All right, so now normally I'd say, oh, pat the edges, smooth it all out, but this project I encourage the roughness, wanting it to look like bark of a tree. So I'm going to separate my little wire points on my tool, and I am going to make this all look like bark. Just texturing the whole thing, edges and the front. And actually, if you want to shape a little eye in the tree, you can make a little oval-like shape and then go around it. My thought is that you should always start from the center and go up and out so that it looks like it's growing. It just takes a little bit to rough that up. And then where I attached in that extra little piece, that all gets blended in by roughing up the surface to make it look like bark. Too, if you notice the little edges and the points of my end of the branches, some of them are a little squared off. I'm going to take my finger and just kind of compress them a little bit, because the ends of branches are never like, they don't grow and square off at the end. They grow and are a tip at the end. So I'm going to, there we go, and flip it over and do exactly the same thing on the other side. And I've had some of my students make this and make a heart in the middle of the tree, like a couple, carved their initials inside a heart. There's different reasons that people will make a tree like this. So sometimes they're just purely decorative, sometimes they have function holding your jewelry. But it's a fun project to make. Okay, I'm getting on the texture. There we go. So now again, that sits and rests. And when I make this with my little students, the young kids, I often have them decide, are they going to have themselves sitting underneath the tree, or is there going to be a kickball stuck in the tree, or a tree swing? We could use actual string and then make a little tire that could hang from the tree. But anyway, now I'm going to patty cake a little piece of clay because we need to make that circle base. So we're going to do that next. And notice this tree is a little bigger, so I'm going to make my circle a little bigger than the other one. I'll just roll it out. That's plenty big. And I have a circle stencil to use to trace out the circle, but you can use anything that's round if you have a cup or a glass or an old medicine bottle that you're not using anymore. This size looks good. I'll trace all the way around. Get rid of my scraps. Pat the edges. Now you can make this completely smooth if you want, or you can draw texture, making it look like grass. Your choice. There we go. Okay. So then the trick is attaching this. The clay tree is too soft to stand up. It's very flimsy right now, correct? So in order to get it to this point, what I do is I always push it to the edge of the table I'm working at, or like in this case, it's a canvas covered board, and I score and slip it and attach it in a laying down position. So I'm going to score and slip the middle here. I'm going to score and slip the very end of the trunk and have it hang over the edge. And then I'm going to press it together very thoroughly with care. And I'm going to leave this rest. I usually leave it rest overnight. And then when I come in the morning, I'm able to stand it up like this. Thank you.